Welcome back to the fourth and final segment of this discussion on sustainable energy. We're discussing whether a country like India can move in the next 20 years to a situation where 1/3 of our total energy is from renewable sources. Here with me in the studio of Lok Sabha Television, I have Prabir Ghosh, President, CEO and Ambassador of Invest, which is a non-profit technology-neutral apolitical organization, and Invest stands for Invest in Energy that's Sustainable through virtual collaborative teams. Prabir, this whole issue of the challenges that lie ahead, what according to you are the biggest challenges that lie ahead of a country like India in moving along the sustainable energy path? You said the target set by the National Solar Energy Mission is achievable, but can we achieve it? And how can we achieve it? What are these challenges that lie ahead of us?
The good part about India is there are already several things that are going on that's doing really well. The issue we are facing though is we do not have a programmatic structural way of looking at things holistically. I have about 5 or 6 recommendations that I'd like to kind of share.
Please go on.
So the first thing we need to look at is there's a saying that that says that if you try and do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that's the height of insanity. To some extent, I think not only India, a lot of the people who are in the traditional mode of thinking
we are running to stay in the same place, is it?
That's kind of a very good analogy. I'll give you an example. India has put in about 3.5 to 4 million biogasifiers in villages, both small as well as community biogasifiers.
So-called smokeless chulas.
Yeah, 80% of them are not working. So instead of trying to put more and more without understanding what is the root cause,
which are not working,
what is the root cause
is frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's not just a waste of money and and resources of everybody's time. It gets very frustrating for people who are using it that they will stop using it after some time and throw it away.
Okay.
So what we are recommending is the first thing we need to do is back in 2006. Kirit Parikh and the Planning Commission got together, put together a team, and they came out with an integrated energy policy. And from there, I believe the climate change policy on the 8 action plans came out. I believe we need to have a relook at that and come back and say, here is a way to break the silos. That's one of the other issues we need to look at. In India, energy is in all different places. We have got Ministry of Power, Ministry of Petroleum and Gas, we've got new and renewable energy, we've got
water resources.
We've got water, which has got a huge nexus and equation with energy. We have to weigh water versus energy. We have to weigh agriculture, which is food versus energy.
So the short point that you're making is that it's not coordinated, not adequately coordinated. Am I correct?
Right. I think we've got the overall framework that has been put together very well. We now need to come back with detailed roadmaps where people become accountable, and I think media can play a very huge role in doing that.
What about the other recommendations that you have?
The second recommendation is the stalemate we are facing in Copenhagen. Hopefully we can maybe start thinking about it in a different way in Cancun and going forward.
I'm not very optimistic, but go ahead,
okay.
Tell me.
A simple thought process is, we have been looking in absolutes. What I mean by that is developed countries are saying, let's reduce 20%, 30%, 40% of our carbon. That does not work for countries like India and China, who has to still grow very dramatically over the next 20, 30 years. And in return, India and China and the developing countries are going back to the developed countries and saying...
Prabir, there seems to be no meeting ground. I mean, India is saying that what America is suggesting is piffling. And they want us to cut down our development.
So let's move away from absolutes. The beauty of this is in simplicity. Let's simply say, as a percentage of our energy, so no matter whether you are a developed country or a developing country...
So your argument, from what I understand, both India and the US should now say that from now, over the next 20 years, 1/3 of our energy would be
Or a
from
number that's aggressive.
renewable sources.
Yes, whether it's 25%
So
or
you agree
40%.
not on absolute numbers but a proportion.
Right.
All right, go on. What
So-
are the other recommendations? Yes.
So the second part is a part you kind of alluded on, is where do we get the technologies from? From my perspective, today 90% of the innovations are still happening in US. It's not being utilized very well. And I think for a balanced growth for the world, which can be a win-win situation, we need to start talking about identifying which technologies that mutually benefit
this is
both
an important
US and
point.
India.
It's a very important
Okay.
point you made. The question is, even once you've identified that technology, which you know is mutually beneficial, that mutual part of it is the problem. Because India would like to get that technology cheap. But the guy who's selling that technology from the US wouldn't like to sell it cheap. So therein could lie a huge conflict of interest. And many would argue that indeed is a big problem and a constraint.
That's a problem if we are looking at it from a traditional point of view. First of all, India is not a small country anymore. We are today doing $1.4 trillion in GDP. If you are really thinking 10%, we will be crossing $10 to $11 trillion in the next 20 years.
The view is that, again, I'm playing contrarian here. Just because Barack Obama says you're no longer an emerging economy, you've emerged, it doesn't mean we have emerged. We are 116th out of 165 countries in the Human Development Index of the UN. So the question is, even these new technologies, will it really benefit the poor, the underprivileged? Not just India, but Bharat as well. This is the whole issue of inclusive growth.
Absolutely. The next focus is very focused on inclusive growth. What I mean by that is we see that distributed technologies, which renewables can play very well.
You've talked about inclusive growth, you've talking about better coordination, you've talked about having greater integration in our energy policy. I mean, would you like to outline some key messages that you believe in terms of policy initiatives that could help us move, a country like India, move in that direction?
Yes. The first part I'd like to tackle this is there are 4 things every country needs to do, especially when it comes, including India, when it comes to energy. These 4 are technology, the funding behind those technologies, to fund those technologies to grow, the policies to make those growth happen, especially when it's scaling. The 4th part, in my mind, the glue for all this is the education and awareness that needs to come for all this. So this is the 4-legged stool to make that happen. But the biggest part of all, Paranjoy, is not these 4. The biggest part of all is I learned it the hard way when I was doing the transition work for many companies, was not the technology or not the policy or not the education or not, it was the mindset and the will.
Okay. So we have to change our mindset, and therein only our attitudes, the political will can actually
Absolutely. I'll give you a simple term, okay? Even the people who are in renewable energy today use a term called MTOE. These are MTOE stands for million tons of oil equivalent, whether they are doing coal, whether they are doing gas, whether they are doing renewables.
Can you suggest a better term?
So the first mindset change we need to do is move away from an oil-based analogy and equivalent.
A yardstick.
And maybe use billion kilowatt hours, which is, everybody knows about that. Okay. Even the villager, just like the cell phone, everybody uses a cell phone. They know what that is. They don't need the technology behind it.
Okay.
So, but that's electric.
I'm almost out of time.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say? Last word? Sentence from
the
you?
last sentence would be, I think media can play a huge role in this, and initiatives like this do not happen without the support not only in terms of getting deeply involved, time-wise, and also monetary support to make this
All
happen.
right. Thank you so much, Prabir, for coming here to
Thank
the
you.
studio of Lok Sabha Television. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard and watched Prabir Ghosh. He heads an organization called Invest. Time will tell whether our policymakers, all of us, we all change our mindset and we move in a direction which is ecologically sustainable. So countries like India and other countries of the world, in the foreseeable future, start using more and more renewable energy rather than non-renewable energy. Thank you so much for being with us on this program.